Good evening. Tonight we're talking about the business of leaving. 5 major US companies are turning down Trump-era policies and reducing their American footprint. Is this corporate wanderlust or something deeper? We're diving into the real cost of tariffs and what it means for the American economy. This isn't just about stock prices, it's about jobs, communities, and the fabric of American industry. So grab a stress ball, shaped like a globe. Let's break down which companies are making big moves, why they're packing up and what's left behind. Let's get into it. Let's start with an icon, Ford Motor Company. For over a century, Ford has been a symbol of American innovation, grit, and the spirit of building things at home. From the Model T to the F-150, Ford's story is woven into the fabric of American industry, but even legends have to adapt when the rules of the game change. In recent years, Ford faced a challenge that would test its ability to survive in a rapidly shifting global economy. Ford had ambitious plans to bring the Focus Active, a sleek crossover, to American drivers. The twist? It would be built in China and shipped to the US, taking advantage of global supply chains and cost efficiencies. But then, a 25% tariff was slapped on cars imported from China, turning what was once a smart business move into a financial nightmare. Suddenly, the math didn't add up. The extra cost would have made the Focus Active too expensive for American buyers, and Ford would have lost money on every car sold. So, what did Ford do? Instead of moving production to the US, which would have required massive investment, new factories, and a complete overhaul of their supply chain, Ford made a tough call. They simply canceled the Focus Active for the American market. Dealerships that were counting on a new model to attract customers were left with empty lots and disappointed buyers. The Focus Active became another casualty of a trade war that was supposed to protect American jobs. The impact didn't stop there. Tariffs on steel and aluminum, key materials for building cars, drove up costs across the board. Ford reported that these tariffs cost the company over $1 billion in profit in just 1 year. That's money that could have gone into research, new models, or hiring more workers. Instead, it vanished, lost to higher prices and uncertainty. The company's financial reports showed the strain, and executives were left scrambling to adjust their strategies. The ripple effect was felt far beyond Ford's boardroom. Idle plants meant workers sent home, sometimes permanently. Suppliers who depended on Ford's business saw their orders dry up. The entire auto supply chain, from raw materials to finished vehicles, was thrown into chaos. And it wasn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. These were real people, real families, and real communities feeling the pain of lost jobs and shuttered factories. The policy that was supposed to bring jobs back to America ended up making the market unpredictable and expensive. Business owners faced rising costs they couldn't control, and economists warned that uncertainty was scaring off investment. Instead of a manufacturing renaissance, many companies found themselves stuck in limbo, unable to plan for the future. The dream of "Made in America" was overshadowed by the reality of higher prices and fewer opportunities. So how did Ford respond? Rather than doubling down on a hostile market, Ford shifted its focus to more stable, less tariff-prone regions. The company expanded its presence in Europe, Asia, and other international markets where the rules were clearer and the risks lower. It wasn't about abandoning America, it was about survival. Ford's decision was echoed by other manufacturers facing the same pressures. In the end, it's not betrayal, it's business. And Ford isn't alone in making these tough choices in a world where the only constant is change. Next up, Harley-Davidson, an American icon whose rumbling engines and rebellious spirit have long symbolized the open road and American freedom. But in recent years, this legendary brand has found itself at the crossroads of global trade tensions, forced to make tough decisions that would have seemed unthinkable just a decade ago. Once the pride of Milwaukee, Harley's story now takes a detour that stretches far beyond US borders. It all started when the US government imposed steep tariffs on imported European steel and aluminum, aiming to protect American industry. In response, the European Union struck back with tariffs of their own, slapping a hefty 31% tax on every Harley-Davidson motorcycle sold in Europe. Suddenly, the cost of a Harley in Paris or Berlin soared, threatening to price the brand out of one of its most important overseas markets. Faced with the prospect of losing access to European riders, Harley's leadership had to act fast. Their solution? Move production of motorcycles destined for Europe out of the United States, setting up new assembly lines in Thailand and other countries. By manufacturing bikes abroad, Harley could sidestep the EU tariffs and keep their motorcycles affordable for European customers. It was a bold move, one that sparked controversy at home, but kept the company's global ambitions alive. The decision sent shockwaves through Washington. The White House, which had championed the tariffs as a way to protect American jobs, was furious. Harley-Davidson, once celebrated as a symbol of American manufacturing, was now accused of abandoning its roots. But for Harley's executives, the choice was clear. Adapt to the new reality of global trade, or risk losing a vital market that accounted for a significant share of their sales. The trade war didn't just force Harley to rethink its supply chain, it accelerated the company's transformation into a truly global manufacturer. Jobs and investments that might have stayed in the US were now flowing to factories overseas. Shipping routes shifted, and new partnerships were forged with suppliers and workers in Asia and Europe. For Harley, globalization was no longer a choice, but a necessity for survival in a world where trade barriers could rise overnight. Ironically, the very tariffs designed to protect American workers ended up accelerating the export of jobs and manufacturing know-how. As Harley's U.S. plants scaled back, local communities felt the impact. Empty factory floors, fewer job opportunities, and a sense of loss for a brand that had once been a source of local pride. The ripple effects extended far beyond Harley, affecting suppliers, dealerships, and entire towns built around the motorcycle industry. Today, if you spot a Harley-Davidson roaring down the streets of Berlin or Paris, there's a good chance it began its journey not in Wisconsin, but in a factory thousands of miles away. The badge still says Harley-Davidson, but the story behind each bike now spans continents, shaped by the unpredictable tides of international trade. The lesson is clear. Tariffs don't just raise prices for consumers, they can reshape entire industries, shifting jobs, investment, and even the identity of iconic brands. In a globalized world, the road ahead is rarely a straight line. For Harley-Davidson, the journey continues, wilder and more unpredictable than ever before. General Motors, another titan, another retreat. GM closed 5 North American plants and cut 14,000 jobs, citing tariffs and rising costs. Retaliatory tariffs from China, GM's biggest market, made US-built cars even harder to sell. While US plants closed, GM ramped up investment in Mexico and China. The result: fewer American jobs, more production abroad, and a sense of betrayal in communities promised a manufacturing revival. Tariffs made US production less competitive, accelerating GM's global shift. You can't force a company to operate at a loss out of patriotism. Capital flows where it's treated best. For GM, that meant building elsewhere. Let's take a closer look at a classic American icon, Levi Strauss & Company. For generations, Levi's jeans have been woven into the fabric of American culture, worn by everyone from gold miners and cowboys to rock stars and presidents. The brand's red tab and signature stitching are instantly recognizable, conjuring images of the American West and the promise of opportunity. But in today's globalized world, the story of a single pair of jeans is far more complex than it once was. For years, Levi's relied heavily on manufacturing in China, where skilled workers and efficient factories could produce jeans at a scale and price that kept American closets full and company profits healthy. But when tariffs on Chinese goods were introduced, the impact was immediate and significant. Suddenly, the cost of making jeans in China shot up, and Levi's, like many other American brands, found itself caught in the crossfire of a global trade war. The company faced a tough choice: absorb the higher costs, pass them on to consumers, or look for new places to make their iconic denim. Instead of bringing production back to the United States, Levi's shifted much of its manufacturing to countries like Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. These nations offered lower labor costs and fewer trade barriers, making them attractive alternatives for companies looking to avoid tariffs. The move was swift and strategic. Levi's supply chain became a patchwork quilt, stitched together from factories and workers spread across continents. The jeans you buy today might have fabric from one country, zippers from another, and be sewn together in yet another nation before finally landing on a store shelf near you. The result of these changes? While the intention behind tariffs was to encourage American manufacturing and create jobs at home, the reality played out differently. Instead of new factories opening in the US, Levi's and other brands simply rerouted their supply chains. The jeans are still made overseas, just not in China. The supply chain is now more complicated, involving more countries, more shipping, and more logistical hurdles. But for American workers, the hoped-for jobs never materialized. For American consumers, the impact was felt at the cash register. Tariffs meant to punish China ended up raising the price of jeans and other apparel. Companies faced higher costs, and those costs were often passed on to shoppers. Suddenly, a pair of jeans that once seemed affordable now came with a higher price tag. The ripple effect of trade policy was felt in every fitting room and checkout line, as families weighed the cost of clothing against their budgets. Levi's remains a symbol of American style, but its business is now more global than ever. The company's CEO, Chip Bergh, has spoken about the challenges and opportunities of navigating a world where supply chains stretch across oceans and borders. While the brand's heart may be in San Francisco, its jeans are the product of a truly international effort. The story of Levi's is no longer just about American ingenuity, it's about adaptation, resilience, and the realities of a connected world. The dream of Made in America still resonates, but in today's global economy, it's often more of a nostalgic ideal than a practical reality. Many American textile factories have closed their doors, unable to compete with lower costs abroad. The labels on our jeans tell a story of shifting borders and changing times, a reminder that the clothes we wear are shaped by forces far beyond our local malls and main streets. So, the next time you pull on a pair of jeans, consider the journey they've taken. A journey that zigzags across the globe, shaped by trade policies, economic pressures, and the search for the best deal. In the tale of two pant legs, one may still be in the US, but the other is almost certainly somewhere far away, woven into the fabric of a world that's more interconnected and more complicated than ever before. Finally, Caterpillar, the company that builds the world, now digging itself out of a tariff hole. U.S. steel tariffs raised Caterpillar's costs by hundreds of millions. Retaliatory tariffs made exports pricier. Their solutions shift production abroad, serving regional markets from local factories. Less reliance on U.S. plants, more investment overseas. The policy meant to boost American manufacturing pushed Caterpillar to de-emphasize its U.S. base. Capital and jobs followed the path of least resistance, out of the country. The big yellow machines still roll, but increasingly, not from American assembly lines. Tariffs gave Caterpillar a reason to dig in elsewhere. So there you have it, Ford, Harley-Davidson, GM, Levi's, and Caterpillar, all reducing their U.S. footprint. Tariffs were supposed to bring jobs back, but instead drove companies and opportunities overseas. The real cost? Lost jobs, higher prices, and hollowed-out communities. In a global economy, building economic walls has unintended consequences. These companies aren't villains. They're adapting to survive. Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more analysis.